welcome everybody. It's your boy, the Versace Stoner. And we're here with a very special episode of the VSW Podcast. I just want to do a couple of quick shout outs before we get into the meat of it all. Shout out to Mashup Wrestling. You can find him on Instagram, Twitter, all over the place, YouTube. Great video coverage of the New England professional wrestling world. If you're into indie wrestling, or even sometimes even bigger scene like GCW, AEW, and all of that, mixed with cool music, fun effects. Check out Mashup Wrestling. Another great podcast to check out is the Dirty Heels Podcast. You're going to want to check them out. You can find them on Twitter as well, YouTube. They just hit some huge milestones. You're going to want to check them out. Another person to check out is Pop Up Wrestling. They'll be coming back next year with Nightmare After Mania. You're going to want to check them out as well. Get your tickets for that event. You can find them all over social media and YouTube too. So check all those people out. Great people. And the VSW and Versace only likes to really, kind of converse with the great people. That's what we like to do is, put our energy into the goodness of the industry rather than, focus on the negativity. There's a lot of negativity as it is. We don't need to be a part of it. Now, let's get to the business, right? Tonight, VSW Podcast, we're going to be talking with a very special guest, a legend in the industry, Brittany Brown. Let's give her a ring and talk to her.
Hello.
Hi, Brittany.
How are you?
Oh, doing great. This is the Versace Stoner. I welcome you aboard the VSW podcast, where we, kind of like to spotlight the independent scene here in New England.
Awesome.
And, I just welcome you aboard. You're a living legend, and you've worked with some of the greatest in New England.
Well, thank you very much. And yes, I have worked with several that are absolutely awesome.
And a lot of history, a lot of heritage with some of those people, and it's just great. Like I said, I'm gonna kind of just go into it, but I said normally I am on my show. I like to go to the local shows. From the mid. I don't know if you're familiar with New England, but I'm from like the Massachusetts area, and I
Yep.
check out Chaotic Wrestling, and I check out NCW, Beyond Wrestling, Limitless. And the greatest thing about it all is you see these guys and girls really working their asses off, and then in a couple of weeks the ones that are really paid off, you'll see them on TV.
I know. Isn't that great?
It is. It's so great because this wasn't available years ago.
No, absolutely not. And I'll tell you, it is so great to see somebody work so hard and actually get rewarded for it now. It's so awesome.
Before, back in the days, if you didn't make it to the WWE, well, you didn't really make it in the world, and you kind of just traveled the indie scene and just kind of aimlessly kept going until you did something. But, now it's like there's all these outlets and great just avenues you can go. It doesn't have to be just one specific spot.
Exactly. And it's so wonderful for people nowadays. I'm so happy for anybody that makes it and anybody that works so hard and gets what they deserve because there's so many that didn't.
But now it's so much different than when you started out.
Oh, definitely.
Now let's
Definitely.
let's talk about that. What got you into this wonderful sport of professional wrestling?
It's such a weird story, but it's probably a lot like other people's. Um, I just watched it on television with my dad as a kid. And I just really, really loved like the heels. I loved back in my day, the managers like Freddie Blassie, um,
Grand
who
Wizard.
else? Captain Lou, anybody that was, yeah, Grand Wiz, anybody that was a heel. And of course the fabulous Moolah as a wrestler with her diamond dollar sign glasses on, and she told, came on the screen and told everybody off. And I thought, oh my God, someday, but I think everybody says that. but I
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
decided to do
definitely.
something about it.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like, I mean, I could say the same. You know, originally I started. You know, when I could say the same thing. I grew up watching. You know, wrestling with my dad, and he would point out. You know, Mr. Fuji and all these great managers and all these great wrestlers. Cowboy Bob Orton, Bob Duncan, George the Animal Steele.
Yep,
You know, just these great wrestlers that you know probably the kids today don't even know about.
exactly.
And you know, his other favorite guy, you know, was Ernie Ladd. He was a big fan of Ernie Ladd.
Oh yeah, he was great.
You know, and he was in ring great, and he would, you know, show me these videos. And you know, as I grow older, you know, I started watching WWE as it hit the TV, and you know, I kind of just rolled with it. And then I did actually train for a little bit when I was a little bit younger, and then I ended up actually going a different route. I went into boxing, and
Oh wow,
then
where did you train for wrestling?
um, just it was honestly it was in the early 2000s. It was kind of just like backyard people showing me just backyard moves, and
Yeah,
you know, just it was kind of that, you know, when like ECW kind of hit the scene and everybody was just into this whole backyard kind of thing.
yeah, yeah. I
Um,
remember it.
and I was gonna go in that direction of pro wrestling. And, you know, my mom would tell me, no, no, you can't do that, and my dad was like, "There's really no money in it. You know, it's like trying to go to the NFL or something. You're not gonna go to the WWE. You're too small. You're not, you know, you're not a big person." So I was like,
Hmm.
okay, well, you know, and I went into a different direction. I went into boxing, and then I
Yeah.
kind of looped back around into it, and I started doing, you know, getting back into the indie scene back in like 2016, 17, and started to, you know, really kind of focus on the independent scene in New England, and then from there I started, you know, just, you know, watching TV wrestling again too, but really my focus has been on the independent scene, and then you know, I did one class over at New England Pro Academy not too long ago last year, which was a lot of fun, and
Cool.
I kind of do I do training in kind of like I help my friend run a show. He runs a taping every month out of the showcase wrestling in Rhode Island in Woonsocket. And I kind of
Hmm.
help him with that, and he shows me, you know, some ropes and tricks. You know, I'm kind of a little bit old to be running around to wrestling schools, but you know, with that being said, I like being around the industry and something that I really, you know, enjoy. It's a passion of mine. It always has been. Like, you know, you said, you know, you're a little kid in front of the TV, and you're like, you know, someday.
Yeah, exactly. Now you mentioned Showcase in Woonsocket. That's Chris Blackheart.
Yes, it is.
Yes, great guy. Went to Kowalski's just like I did.
Yeah, he is. He's a great guy over there. You know, and he rents out his you know, the center, the showcase rental. He rents it out
Yes.
for different promotions that kind of, you know, get tapings or do trainings, private trainings.
Yeah,
But
it's
yeah,
great.
so you know, Kowalski. You know, so I mean, is that where you started, right, with Kowalski? You know, you said you watched TV, you wanted to do this. This is where you wanted to go. Did you go right to Kowalski school?
No, I actually went to Moolah's
Ah,
first. Um,
okay.
I started at Moolah's in Columbia, South Carolina, and I went there every weekend. I flew myself out there every Friday night, came back Sunday night just in time for work. And I did that until for several months, until the airfares doubled. And I was only 20 at the time. So I said, oh my goodness, I lived on my own. And I said, can't do that anymore. Now what am I going to do? Um, and I kept doing it until I found something else, which just happened out of the blue. I was getting um, my hot rod fixed at a body shop. And I got out of my car, and this big, huge guy got out of a Porsche at the same body shop, in the parking lot. And he comes over to me. I've never seen the guy before in my life. And I'm going to myself, why is this guy coming over to me? And he says to me, Jesus, you're a good sized girl. Boy, you're awfully tall. What are you, 6 feet? And I'm so sick of hearing stuff about my height. So I'm like, yeah. But he was like 6'6". So I'm like, okay, what's this guy getting at? Right. And he
Yeah.
says to me, well, have you ever thought about professional wrestling? And I'm thinking to myself, wow, I've been going to Moolah's for almost a year. How does this guy know? Right. Well, he didn't know. And he just saw how big I was and said, God, I got to get her to Kowalski's. So he
Just
brought me there, and his name was Tony Santos.
Wow.
Junior.
Yeah.
And at the time, I had never heard of him, because him and his father were before my time.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I didn't know who he was. And of course, years later, I found out who they were and what they meant in the business, especially locally. Um, and that was really cool. He was a great guy. Went to his house, met his wife, and he ended up bringing me to Kowalski's, and that's how I ended up training at Walters.
So you were kind of all done with. You were. Did you leave with Mula with good terms?
Oh yeah, we remained friends over the years, and I ended up being on the board of her LIWA
Oh
that
wow,
she
that's great.
ran with. Yeah, she ran with May Young, and
Yep.
many, many, many years later, they came for the weekend, and we ran an event in New England, and I put that all together for them because I'm here and they're not, and they stayed at my house for the whole weekend and everything, and we remained close right up until they both passed away.
That's wonderful. You just think of this, and you kind of look at like even you look at where women's wrestling is today. You look at even like local places like Chaotic Wrestling, where you have a women's champion, Davy Ann. Or even on the big screen where you have all this women wrestling. You just think the pioneers of all this were you guys.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I
But
mean, well before us, it was certainly May and Moolah.
it kept you guys all kept it going and kept the traditions alive. And
Absolutely,
and even everybody that I think went through Killer Kowalski's school, kept that tradition alive. We
absolutely.
still got some great trainers that still train by his methods in the area. You got Bu Douglas over there at Belltime. Um, you know, even Chase Del Monte uses some of the methods, and like you said, you still got Blackheart who was trained by him. We have a lot of just great outlets that still teach Kowalski's methods to the students today.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, Chris is a great example of that. Because Chris was probably in one of the last classes at Killer Kowalski's. And, it's great that he's out there and he's teaching everybody else.
I actually went out there when I was like fresh out of high school. I went down to the school to check it out. I vaguely remember it now, but I do remember my dad bringing me out there and all excited he was gonna meet Kowalski. He actually wasn't there that day, but you know, um, it was such a cool atmosphere to kind of see something like because that was kind of around the time that you had that documentary coming out showing behind the scenes stuff and the kayfabe was kind of fading away but the fans wanted to see that like behind the scenes stuff they wanted to know well how is this actually done now
Oh,
so it was
yeah.
very kind of cool to kind of like be able to kind of go into a school and be like wow this is a school that teaches you how to do this is
Exactly.
cool. This is amazing. Like I remember me and my friends in high school going, we want to go to Kowalski's school because it was the only school in the area. First of all, and second of all, we knew who Killer Kowalski was. Our fathers had watched him. Our grandfathers had watched him. You
Right.
know, he was a major star in this area.
Absolutely.
So now back to you though. You were in so you went over to Walters and you started training with them.
Yes. It was awesome. It was, now he was right outside the combat zone in Boston when I first started going there. That was a pretty scary place, I gotta
Yeah,
tell
that's
you.
wild times. I was young when they closed it down, but I heard plenty of stories. Wild place. Um, and yeah, the school was right outside of that area.
Yeah, that was a pretty scary place, especially from a young girl from Situate, Mass, who had never really gone even as far as Quincy. So that was pretty weird driving there. And, I could tell you a lot of stories about things that happen outside of there, but that's not what we're here for. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
we'll
I'm
talk
sure
about what went on inside.
someday Vice will contact you for Dark Side of the Ring.
Yeah, a lot of weird cats out there, but I was happy when he moved to Malden, obviously, because that was a much better
Much different,
area.
yeah, much different location, much different area, more isolated, not so much in the city, and
Yeah, a little bit safer, especially for some, young women coming traveling by themselves there. So it was a much better place, and the place in Boston didn't even have a ring. We learned on gym mats and we bounced off of cement walls. And I will tell you, my first match I ever had live was the first time I was ever in a real ring. I didn't even know how to go off the ropes, nothing other than learning how to go off the concrete. So, was I trained? Yes. Had I ever had my back, my arms, anything ever touched rope? Nope.
It's kind of like the Stu Hart stories. You hear them being trained in like the basement on the mats, and
Yep.
just but you learn the basics no matter where you learn it. The fundamentals are there, whether it's a ring now, a cage. You see wrestling in all sorts of venues now, even in clubs, no ring at all, and these people can pull it off, and because they know the fundamentals. So I guess in a way, if you can learn it one place, you can use it everywhere.
Absolutely. And I think it worked out for the best that I started at Moolah's because she had a ring and she actually, I mean, I could say, well, I should back up and explain to you that when I first decided to go to Kowalski's, I went there and the people that I saw there, I said, I don't think this is going to work for me. So I went to Moolah's.
Yeah,
And then after Moolah's, well, I was still going to Moolah's. That's when the body shop thing happened.
yeah.
And
The guy
Tony
kind of
Santos
scouted you.
found me and yeah, and brought me there. And so it was kind of weird the way it all happened because I wasn't really actively looking for some place to go, but I knew I had to either give up or find another place. And back then, there was no internet. There was no way to find another place.
Yeah, and they were far and few. There wasn't many schools out there. The wrestlers that were wrestling were still active. They weren't teaching yet.
Exactly. Exactly. So, the way I look at it is I feel like I really, really, really lucked out. I feel honored to have the two trainers that I had because I don't think there's a lot of people that can say they were trained by Mueller and Killer Kowalski.
No, I mean that's two Hall of Fame legends. They're on the Mount Rushmores of professional wrestling.
For sure.
And it just like I said. There probably isn't that many that can say that, especially just because of how it happened. You just the transition.
Yeah, it was so weird the way it happened. I mean, to think you're sitting at a body shop waiting for them to open, and this guy gets out of a Porsche, who I have no idea how he even fit in there, and just says, "Geez, have you ever thought about professional wrestling?" And I was like, "Excuse me."
Yeah, it's like what? Wait, hold on.
Yeah,
you know.
like, do we know each other or something? And he didn't know me and I didn't know him. And he was actually there dropping off Misty Blue Sims' Porsche to get work done on it. And I had never heard of her at the time.
So, wow, so it just kind of all just kind of fell into place.
How weird is that?
It is. It's very weird. And it's not. I mean, it's not even like today's age where you can say, well, this. Today, you work somewhere, the internet can find you, and you can say, oh, well, this person's working there. And back then, it was just like, oh, you ran into someone. And you was just like, well, she looked like a good wrestler. Let's take her.
Right, right.
You know.
Yep, very different. But yeah, good stuff. I mean, New England is definitely the place to learn.
And who would you say so your career took off from there, and you just started just working and getting high end things. Who would you say was your like favorite opponent?
You know, there were three. I had well, actually I can't say that because there was probably five, but my
Yep.
my my very favorite people that I worked with the most frequently, the two favorites I had were Shelley Francis, also known as Rosebud, She
Yep.
was Rosebud in New England, Shelley Francis on LPWA. She was also from Kowalski's, and I mean, absolutely amazing. There's nothing I can say but awesome stuff about her. Um, and then after that, a few years later, Brandy Alexander and I worked all over the place together. And I mean, we worked Mass, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, uh, Canada, Pennsylvania, Vegas, everywhere together. It was just awesome. And then three other people that I really enjoyed that I didn't work with frequently, but I really, really enjoyed working with were Jean Kirkland, Black Venus, who was also trained by Moolah and lived up at Moolah's when I went up on the weekends,
Yep.
and Judy Martin, who was also at Moolah's, and Leilani Kai.
Wow.
Uh, Boy, talk about three great people.
Oh, I
Uh,
know.
really, five great people. But I mean, it was just wow. You know, the fact that I worked with Leilani the night before she did WrestleMania. You know, and it was like she was so humble, so kind, so sweet, and could have cared less how green you were.
This,
Treated you as an equal
this,
and happy to help in any way if you had any issues. So, you know, I really give credit to people like her and Judy because they've helped so many people in this business. And I don't even know if they realize how many people they've helped.
yeah, and you see that even today. You'll hear of stories of some, even some of the veterans in the, indie scene that will come in and just, help out and just start, they put the stardom behind them and they let the stardom go and they just, they help out, they get humble and they just do whatever they can do to make this show better. And it makes the whole atmosphere a difference, I think. It really does.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. When you have a big head in the locker room, there's nothing but problems.
No, I mean, and the whole point of it is to make the is for the whole show to be good. I mean, if one match is good and the whole show isn't good, there's no point. You want it to
Absolutely.
be a good, memorable show,
Absolutely. That's the only way people are going to come back.
And sometimes I think people lose sight of that. They get, a high head on their shoulders, and you know, even so now, I think now there's more of that stardom because a lot of them are getting paid almost, like professional athletes are getting paid. Where back in the day, the wrestlers weren't getting paid that much money.
Exactly.
There was no multi-year contracts for most wrestlers. Some, yes, I'm sure. Hogan had his contract and others did, but for the majority of people, they weren't making those millions of dollars that some of the people are making today. And
Right.
I can give the ego with that.
Sure. Sure.
But
Absolutely.
but at the
Yep.
end of the day, it's kind of just it should just be a common goal of make the industry better and build up the industry. There's enough people trying to tear it down as it is every day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I give people a lot of credit that, you know, that remain humble and do nothing but try to help other people move forward. And that just helps everybody. It helps the promoter, it helps the events, it helps wrestling in general. And, you know, it's great that people can be like that.
Oh, definitely, definitely. And like I said, this area is blessed with a lot of just great overall wrestling. And a lot of great promotions with a lot of great shows. And I think a lot of them run smoothly. I don't hear a lot of issues, and I think it makes a difference because a lot of the talents out of this area gets on TV pretty quick now.
Oh yeah. It's great.
You
It's
know,
so
and
awesome to see people that I know on television. I'm just like sometimes I get tears literally in my eyes when I
and
see people that I know on
you
there.
know,
I'm
and
like,
just
"Oh my god,
and
he
just how
did it."
many people from Kowalski School got on television
Oh my
after, and
god, yeah.
it just kept going in the the heritage lines.
Absolutely. Well deserved though.
It was. I put him up there as one of the top trainers in the industry.
Absolutely.
I've heard nothing but good stories about him on a personal level. As a trainer, yes, he had his hard methods and he was hard, like you said. You guys were working in concrete, unorthodox methods in today's standards. But at the end of the day, I heard he was just, a very fair trainer. You know, he was very equal in the way he treated everybody. And
Yeah.
I just heard nothing but great stories about Walter as the person.
Oh, as a person, let me tell you, I so to me, for me to say somebody was my second father is a huge thing because I had the best dad in the whole world who never missed one match in 28 years, no matter where it was. And for me to say somebody was a second dad to me is a huge thing. And Walter Kowalski was a second dad to me.
That's a great honor, and like I said, just growing up, and like I said, like just seeing the heritage line kind of grow from that school, and just everybody. It is kind of moving to see people, still today remember Walter. Still it's still running through. His teachings are still with people today.
Absolutely, absolutely. And his International Wrestling Federation, we have a reunion every year. The next one that's coming up is going to be our 10th in a row. And we all get together. The last one we just had was in this past September in Walpole, Mass. And there was about 45 people. And they were all people that were either trained by or worked for Walter or both.
Oh wow, that's
Yeah,
wonderful.
and there were generations of people there. And I mean, there was Tony Ulysses, Big John Callahan, Big Ron Shaw, Chris Blackheart, Smooth Operator Trey. I mean, so many people. Dangerous Dave Starr, the Pink Assassin, so many people. And it was so awesome to see everybody.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. I'm gonna have to keep my eyes open for the next event.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's a really, really great time. And it's so great to see everybody. And I'll tell you who's there every year, has never missed one of them, is Mel Simons, the ring announcer.
Oh wow, that's
Yeah,
great.
yeah. And I mean, Psycho Capone, Cookie Crumble, female wrestler from Walters that wrestled in Japan, wrestled for Walter, for NWA, Pow, Wow. I mean, she really did it all, I'll tell you.
Oh yeah, I remember actually Cookie Crumbles.
Yeah, yeah. I'll tell you, if she wasn't at Walters when I went there with Tony Santos, I would have probably left because if it wasn't for her, I would never have become a professional wrestler. She
Really,
was,
you would have just hung it
oh,
up.
I would have hung it up because it was so hard. And so, like I said, concrete, gym mats, and the area and everything. She kept me going and she didn't look down on me. I mean, she was working everywhere. I was only there about a month or two when she left for Japan.
Yeah.
And I mean, she was already that advanced that she was there. And, I thought I was going to die the 3 weeks she was gone. I actually ended up breaking my neck while she was gone.
Oh wow.
And if she had never gone on that trip, that never would have happened to me because she protected everybody she worked with. And she is also the reason I got back into the business 3 years later because we remained friends. And she was going to do a taping for ICW for the Savoldis.
Yeah.
And she asked me if I'd take a ride with her. And I said, sure. And we took my car. My gear was still in my bag. My clean gear, my boots, everything was still in my bag in my trunk. Hadn't moved for 3 years, hadn't been in a ring for 3 years. And I go with her. It was a, TV taping. She comes running out. Oh my God, Brittany, you got to help me. I'm like, what? She goes, my opponent's not going to make it. This is TV. I need someone.
Yeah.
And I'm like, are you kidding me? I can't do that. I haven't been in the ring for 3 years. Well, we did it. And Brittany Brown was back.
There's no way to better way to get back into it.
Oh my God. But I'll tell you, it was probably the worst, most embarrassing match of my life, and it was televised, but she carried me through it, and I screwed up. She covered it, and I mean, I don't know how anybody could have put up with me, but she did. And she has. We've been friends for 38 years now.
Wow.
Yep. Yep. But if it wasn't for her, I don't think she even realizes what an impact she had on my beginnings, and then my second stab at it wouldn't have been if it wasn't for her.
Yeah, that's great though, just to hear how much of a family everybody kind of was, and how many great people you met in the industry and have kept in contact with.
Oh my God, yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I was at Walter's the day Perry Saturn and John Cronus walked in.
Oh wow,
I was the first person that ever locked up with John Cronus.
nuts to think back and think of that. Now kind of just look at it like everything.
Yeah. I mean,
How
I was
people,
there the day Triple H walked in. I was there.
you know, and
So,
now he's the head of WWE. It's just kind of it's just wild. Like I say, looking back and just fast forwarding a little bit and just being like, well, I was at the beginning of this guy's career and I saw him start here.
yep. Yep, exactly. I look at some of the programs I have in my hope chest, and there's a picture of me, Paul, and Perry as the three champions for IWF, the light heavyweight, the heavyweight, and the women's.
That's great.
Yep,
Wonderful.
crazy stuff.
It is great, and you know, like I said, it's a wonderful sport. I really think it is. I think it's kind of like it's an escape for a lot of people, regardless, how whatever it does for them. Whether it lets them, get out of the house for a little bit to see, to be with friends, to see something fun, or it gets them in the ring and it gets them in shape, and they just like the act of sport. But let me ask you, what would you recommend to any of the new people thinking of, getting into wrestling right now, or joining, their local, wrestling school?
Well, I mean, I think it all depends on how far you want to go, how much you're into it, because I've seen so many people start and then stop because it's like, oh, it's too far, it's too many times a week. First of all, you have to have your heart in it. You have to really want to do this. I mean, I was driving from Situate to Boston after working all day long, and I was going 2 days a week after working and then on the weekends. And I mean, before that, I was flying every Friday night to Columbia, South Carolina from Logan Airport. So
Yeah,
you really, really have to be into it and have to give it your all and make sure that you want to go as far as you're going. Now I hear Valiant has a great school, but you got to want to go out there. You got to want to stay out there. And you got to want to learn. So I've heard his school is absolutely amazing. Now
yeah.
around here, obviously I always recommend Chris Blackheart because he's another Kowalski guy. Um, I don't know whether Chaotic still has Chaotic Training Center anymore.
It's now New England Pro Wrestling Academy, but
And who is the trainer there? Do you know?
it's oh, Max Smashmaster and Chase Del Monte.
Okay. Well, I don't know either of them, but I know Wagner Brown has a school in Connecticut,
Yep.
Slick Wagner Brown, and he's a Kowalski guy, and he also used to be a trainer after I was there. And you know, I think I would highly recommend him. So that's in Connecticut, and
So it's just a
he's
matter, like you said, wanting to travel. Even as a fan, or even somebody that likes to cover the wrestling scene. I've had to do some crazy trips. Maine one night, Pennsylvania the next day,
oh
and I'm
yeah,
seeing this. And the funny thing is, I'm seeing the same wrestlers. I'm seeing the same. We're doing the same drive,
yeah,
and
exactly.
it's a lot. You have to really want it. If and you can tell there is people that started. It's like, yeah, it doesn't really work out, and they just work out a little bit, and it's kind of like, oh, and they don't. Their career never really goes anywhere, and it's Well, you wonder why. There's no effort.
Right.
You
Exactly.
have to you have to really give it that 100%. I think and that
Oh,
traveling it.
absolutely.
The going to the the go to going to the trainings, getting through the trainings. Getting through all of that basic fundamental stuff. That even like you said, you had to do. In the worst part of town, and against the bare minimums.
Yep. Yep. You said it.
You
And
know what I'm saying? But you learn these fundamentals that you're able to just take with you anywhere.
right. Absolutely. And I mean, times are hard. And I'll tell you, there were many mornings I woke up and I could barely get out of bed, especially at Moolah's, because she just had you do it repetitively, taking bumps for hours and hours and hours. And I mean, my first day there, the next morning, I could barely get out of bed. I woke, I was crying, trying to get out of bed. Thank God there was a headboard that I could hold on to get myself out of bed. And the worst part of it all is I had to walk down there and do it all again.
Yeah, it doesn't
So,
end.
like, if you last beyond that, then you're going to do it. You're going to do it. Because honestly, I don't think anybody thought I was going to come back,
You know,
you know?
definitely, definitely. Well, I thank you very much for coming on and talking with us. It's been a great time. Like I said, it's a real passion of mine as a sport and Kowalski person. It's always great. They hold on to that lineage, the heritage. And I'm gonna keep a lookout for that show that you talk about. You said it was a bigger, big reunion coming up.
Oh yeah, we have them annually. Annually, it's the IWF reunion. It's usually like every September, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's really great just to get together with people. And I mean, some people you might not have been that close to back in the day, and now we're all super close, and we're like a big family now. And there are people there from the ages of in their 40s all the way up to in their 80s.
It's all this that common bond. That
Yeah,
one trainer.
yeah, and our Walter was the common bond.
Yep, that is wonderful. Well,
Yeah.
thank you very much, Brittany, for coming on the show.
Absolutely. Anytime at all.
Great. Have yourself a great night.
Thank you so much. You too.
Well, there you have it, folks. The great Brittany Brown. What stories, and Walter Kowalski is just such a household name. If you're a New England wrestling fan or you've been around, it's there. And like I said, growing up, that was the school to want to go to if you wanted to get into the sport. It was the closest one around. For me, it was in Malden. It wasn't in the combat zone, but um, it was a place I checked out, and a lot of the heritage has been moved all around, but you can still find it. And as you heard Brittany say, there's a lot of still great schools out there. Showcase, Chris Blackheart. That's where XUC is being taped. You can check all that information out. You can check out Showcase Wrestling. They put on shows all the time. And you can check them out. They have a YouTube as well. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all the social medias. Thank you, everybody, though, for tuning in. This has been a great episode of VSW Podcast, and we will have even more exciting stuff coming this week forward. We have another interview coming later on, about a week from today, and we got a bunch of more matches from XUC coming out, and more and more and more special stuff coming your way. So just stay tuned, everybody. Thank you, everybody.